Welcome back to Spiral Spy Tutorials with Tovok. This is the advanced tutorial. Um, and today I'm going to show you to do quite a bevy of things. This will most likely be my last tutorial. If you've noted, I have stated that this would be a 4 to 5 episode tutorial. That depends on the length of this video, and I've kind of decided to consolidate the last 3 episodes into this. So if this isn't too long, it'll all be one episode. If not, I'll spread this out to several episodes. So first I'm going to start off here by noting that you'll see our 5 models here. I'm going to tell you what we're about to embark on. So in the middle we have our hero, our default model that we can animate. We can do all kinds of fun stuff with that you might have seen, like the same kind of stuff in the basic usage tutorial. I'm going to show you how to save your model and how to add items to your model, and that is Eduardo. To the right of Eduardo is Neon Vomit. With Neon Vomit, I'm going to show you how you can recolor your character models. To the far right, you'll see Challenger, and with him, I'm going to show you how to how I've edited textures to go on certain pieces of equipment. I'm going to show you how to edit textures. Now going back to Eduardo, to the left of Eduardo, you'll see a Spook Hat, and I'm going to show you how to set monsters within your world on Spiral Spy. And to the far left, you'll see the Rugged Ranger, and I'm going to show you how to edit the monster files. Okay, so starting out with Eduardo. Now this is going to be a little complex as far as teaching you guys how to save models, because it's not the simplest process. So with Eduardo, we're going to, he's already selected, he's our default model. We're going to go to Edit, and we're going to pull that screen up and bring it a little bit bigger so we know what we're doing here. And we're going to go all the way down on Eduardo. You'll notice I saved him as a different version, so his texture's changed a little bit. He doesn't have arms or legs, but let me figure out what I'm doing here real quick. Okay, so Eduardo. First off, to note, this doesn't work the same way as the basic. The basic model, you'll notice my model palette has a different window type for colorization, helmet, and armor. And this is because the basic model has a special parameter that will reset the defaults every time you come back around, so that you can play with what you want your knight to look like. This makes it so that every time you restart the game, there's a default grayscale model there that's just gross, and you've lost everything you worked on the last time. If you want to keep your models, you have to go into more complex details. So you would go down to the bottom of your edit screen that you've pulled up with your Eduardo, and you'll see that we have parameters at the very bottom, P parameters. So the first parameters you're going to mess with, the only parameters you're going to mess with, is your colorization, and you're going to change it from direct. It's going to be defaulted as direct. You're going to change it from that to choice. Then you're going to go down past face textures and height and do the same for helmet and armor. You're going to change those both to choice. Now, after that's done, you'll go back to back up to attachments, and for the default model, the attachments are grayscaled pieces of equipment, but we've already changed Eduardo, so I'm just going to show you how to do that again. So now it's choice. Everything you make in this is final decisions, and they'll always be on your character. So you'll go up to your first attachment, 0, which is your helmet, bone helmet. You can play with the colors here if you really want to. And you, same way you would do any other model, you just click on model.dat, and then you pick the item that you would like to replace your helmet with. So I've given Eduardo a chromless helm now. So now Eduardo will always have that helmet. But not so fast, because if you exit out and you click edit again, it'll return him to his prior saved file. So what you want to do is you want to go up to File in the Edit window and click Save As. I've already saved the file for Eduardo, but it'll default you to certain screens. Now, regardless of whatever screen you've been defaulted to, because it can vary, You want to go start from the RC panel, go into characters, go into PC, and this is where the default model file is. So this is a good spot to place all your models. You'll notice my default model, and I have a couple of other models that I've saved outside of my files. And you'll notice that if you come all the way down here, I actually have a Spiral Tutorials file already saved, and I've saved it as 111 so that as to easily find my models. So going back into 111 Spiral Tutorials, so it's a good idea to make a new folder so that you can easily find your models, and normally make it a 1 or an A so it's at the beginning, so it's a lot easier to find. Now I'll go into 111 Spiral Tutorials and I will save as model Eduardo, and now Eduardo is saved, and every time I exit out of this model, clear it, and bring back model Eduardo, he'll have the same stuff, same animation that I've set him with, everything. So at default, his start animation is salute. That's why you see him saluting there. But he's the default. He's the source model that we're using here, so I can set him. I can play with that a little bit. I have the global speed set to 0.25, if you haven't noticed, just so that the walking animation, because this is base speed for the walking animation, just so you can get an idea. It's not super fast, but still. So I'm going to slow that down, back down, and I'm going to go back to my model editor. Now I'm going to show you, because attachments work different for these kind of models. You can still go in just like the other model and change all the attachments here, but like I said again, when you come back to the model, they'll all be gone. Same with weapon and shield. So in order to combat that, you can make new attachments, or you can always go down to weapon and shield and change those to choice as well, and find them in the attachments where they are, and you can change those. So I'm just going to show you how to add new attachments, accessories to be specific, and some custom attachments. Now this is the Chromalisk head. I'm going to add a, what am I gonna? I'm gonna add a little scouter, one of those little Dragon Ball Z scouters to his face. Model scanner vision presets. I'll just use the presets. You can also use recolor, which is basically the prismatic model of the item, but we'll just do presets. And this is your identity color right here. And then this is the preset color, so I'll do like a divine. And now he's got his little scouter. So now he's got attachments. Woohoo! As easy as that. Make sure you have a node set. The node decides where the item is put. It doesn't matter for attachments which node you pick, because they'll always go to where they default as attachments. But you still need this. If you don't select anything, then Spiral Spy will crash. It matters. It's a lot more important to pick a different node for items that you're going to play with and set on your character. So I'm going to give him a blade on his hip, so that it looks like he's always toting around his blade. So by default, I want this to be on his right hip, so I'm going to pick bone belt. Now every time I animate, it'll be strapped to his belt on the right side, and it'll look really nice. I'm going to give him some kind of sword. So I'll go into the items, weapons, sword, and I'll just give him a default caliber. Now, you'll more than notice that the caliber is weird, caliwampus, too big, and sticking straight out of his thigh. So this is where you have to use your transform tools. Basically, you want to rotate it, and you just have to play with this because it doesn't conform to the normal compass modes like model preference would. So you have to play with it, see which directions it goes, see how it looks. It's best to have your character standing idle so that you can make sure it all works. Because if you're playing with it as he's doing a walking animation like I just was, it becomes much more strenuous. So you just play with these, and you scale it down a little bit so it doesn't look so big. You can clip it out so it's not clipping through his belt so bad. So I'll just clip it out a little bit, move it up. Same way as you do preferences, you can drag it, the arrows with your mouse, or you can tap to nudge. And now when I animate him walking, it should animate somewhat correctly with the sword on his hip. Yeah. So now Eduardo's got a little sword on his hip. And before I leave, I always want to make sure to click File Save, so that Eduardo is always Eduardo. And because if you leave without saving and click the Edit button, it'll bring him back to the most previous version without any of the changes. Okay. Moving on, we're going to get to Neon Vomit here. So Neon Vomit is preference right now. So I have to open up my preference palette, and she's the first environmental model. So I'll go to her, and now I'll edit her. So same as the other guy, you have attachments, animations, and preferences. You're just going to go down, and I've already picked some items. You'll notice recolored items that can be recolored without editing the texture are called model recolor. So I have her wearing the model recolor of the double plume helmet and the model recolor of the double belt helmet. I believe that's what double belt armor. I believe that's what that is. So every color on here is customizable. You'll have to play with it to figure out what colors you're actually changing. But all you have to do, it'll start out as a goldish color by default. I'll show you. Let me clear the file, and then So this is the default of those colors. You'll notice it's a lot different from what I had before. You just go into hue, and it'll change the hue. So it'll change the color by itself. Then you can go into saturation, and it'll make it whiter or darker, or sorry, it drains the color or adds color, and then value makes it darker or lighter. So you can play with those on everything, and it'll change different parts of the armor set, and that only works on basically any proto gear. There's a couple of other items that do have options to change these settings, but the proto gear is the base ones that are there. So mainly you'll find these on any sets of proto gear, and you can always do a model recolor and play with it. Okay, now moving on, I'm going to show you the textures. I'm going to show you Model Challenger's texture palettes and how I've managed to edit together two different sets of armor here without them colliding so messily. So Challenger is wearing a modified plate gown on his chest piece with some rivet gear as his default armor. So the modified plate gown is the addition to this armor. So you'll just go to your Challenger file in your preferences. He's my first environmental model, so I'll edit that, and I'll show you how to add the texture, and I'll show you a little bit of what the texture, what editing the texture might look like and what you might do. So the armor is an attachment, and this attachment was not the last one I put on. Actually, I had set, okay, so it is an attachment. I replaced it with the default armor, as I recall. Oh, perhaps not. So the armor is an attachment. We've established that. I'm just confusing myself a little bit, sorry. I'm just trying to find where I put this armor. So give me a moment. Here we go. So it's my 19th attachment. This guy has a lot of attachments, so it's hard to figure out what piece of equipment is what. So you'll notice it's just the default plate model. If I go in here, it's under plate, it's under armor and gear, but it's just the default plate armor set. Now what I've done is I've gone in and I've added a new option for textures. So you'll notice that I can easily change it back to any other plate armor, but it clips through all his other gear, and it has all those like messy boots and extra folds and stuff that it doesn't need. So I made a new texture called Slender that matches his gear better and looks quite nice if you ask me. So I came out of the I if you go to config and then the edit, so you're editing the plate model now, and you go down to parameters, the first one is choice, and it's the variant choice, and you'll see options down below. Now you have an option to add a new option, so you can always make a new option and input a new texture, that a new custom texture that you have made. I made one texture called armor skin variant slim .png, and I named it Slender. So under the options tab, going back, you'll see that there's Slender, and it's under the plate options model. And before you leave those, you always want to make sure you save it so that the armor set is concrete. Now to just give you a basic look at the textures, I'm going to go into Photoshop and I'll show you that these are what textures look like. This is a default texture. You go into the files, you open up the .pngs, and you bring them up in Photoshop, and this is what the texture looks like. So this is the dark powder armor default, which is what I edited to get my variant. And all I've done is a simple image adjustments, hue saturation, and change the saturation to a more red color so that it matched. And you've also noticed that I've taken out the wrist guards and hand guards, leg plates, so that they don't clip. So they're non-existent anymore, and they don't clip through my gear, making it look ugly. So now everything's to my liking. More palette stuff. There's plenty of stuff you should do. If you're gonna mess with textures, you wanna know what you're doing in Photoshop. I'm not gonna get into Photoshop right now, but I'm just showing you a taste of how I do new textures for my models, and I normally make them specifically for models. I don't just play around with textures. Okay. So I'm going to X out of Photoshop now that I've shown you that, and that's all you need to know for making textures. So we're moving right along. I'm going to show you how to spawn in our little spook hat friend here. So it's really actually quite simple. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that you could do this. So first of all, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to take him off the map. He is my third preference. And I'm just going to show you from the RSRC palette source like menu where you need to go to spawn this little sucker. So you click on character, much like where your models are. Instead of PC, you'll pick NPC, and then you have a folder conveniently labeled monsters. So you'll go into monsters. And then you have a list of a bunch of monsters. Some of them don't go by their default names, but you know, just look around, search by yourself. I'm doing Spookhat, so there is a Spookhat listing right there. And there's some confusing files, but normally you want to go with the model.dat. This varies with different units. And whoa, Spookhat! There's a bunch of things you can get into to editing your items. Sometimes there's your monsters, sometimes there's variants, sometimes there's different things you can do with them. So I'm just going to leave this Spookhat pink and leave him there, and that's how you spawn in monsters. And oh, whoa, that was weird. Editing the monsters is a lot like editing your own units. So my environmental model 2 which is my rugged ranger, he has been modified to be purple. The rock plate shield, the rock jelly shield, like over his shoulder, royal jelly shield, sorry, over his shoulder, and some tusks. And all you really do is, like a lot of these, you go into edit, you go down to wherever attachments may be. Well, way at the bottom in this one, and you pick, you add new attachments. So all I did was I added new attachments. You'll notice if I change the helmet, he loses his tusks, because what I did was I moved a Dread Skelly helmet to his chin to give him tusks. And that is really cool, if you ask me. So it's just finding items you like and tweaking these items to get the results you want. So same thing with the Jelly Shield. You still have all the variant selectors. I just wanted a Royal Rank 2. You can have anything, really. And you can also move it around, much like the other items. It's important to, again, clip these to the right spots so that they animate correctly, because if you do a strike and the shield is not attached to his shoulder or upper arm on your node listing, if it's attached to his jaw, it will follow his jaw's path of travel and will clip through your own items and look really, really awkward. So make sure you're getting your nodes right, and then you can play with the location of it. And yeah, that's it. That's the advanced tutorial for model making on Spiral Spy. Thank you for watching, and I hope all these tutorials have been very helpful for you. That's it.